All right, it's 12:01 p.m. and I'm here with Riverview School Board President Brian Hopkins and the Superintendent Kim Taylor. So, Brian, first tell me about your idea about getting a deputy in the school and what that's going to entail as far as why you want to do that, what it's going to cost, how it's going to be paid for, stuff like that.
Yeah, so this idea kind of stemmed from the Village of Salem Lakes representatives, actually Bill Hopkins, trustee, looking to add more coverage to the Village of Salem Lakes, and also a desire of local schools to have some representation from the Sheriff's Department inside school buildings. As a local teacher, I think it's highly important, and I feel the need that we make sure our kids are protected and safe at all times, and that, regardless of response time, we always have sheriff's deputy be able to respond to any kind of need we may have in terms of a school threat. But more than that, also looking at the need of a school resource officer to be a community police officer and to serve our students in our community and give good first impressions for our kids, provide resources in various areas such as hunter safety, boater safety, bike safety, things of that nature, and just how they can kind of have a good experience with kids. In terms of how it's going to kind of work budgetary-wise, I'm going to pass that off to our superintendent, Kim Taylor, to kind of discuss more about that.
All right, very good.
Yeah, so schools have a fund available to them called Fund 80. It's our community service fund, which allows us to tap into an extra levy that we can levy for events or things that serve the community. And so the school resource officer is one of those things. So if we decide to move forward with a school resource officer, the funds would come from an extra levy based on our Fund 80 proposal. And right now, very estimated, so I want to make sure that our listeners are hearing that it's an estimated cost. If right now it's projected that taxes on a $300,000 home would rise by $124 based on the referendum and just sort of the school funding model as it is today. Again, that's estimated. If we added a school resource officer, that same the cost would be $174 a year on a $300,000 home. And right now, the sort of proposal is that the school resource officer would be paid their salary and benefits would be 66% on Riverview, and then the rest would come from the Village of Salem Lakes, because that officer would patrol the Village of Salem Lakes on a third shift during the summer. So it would allow that the village to have an extra patrol officer in the summer months when they're not working at the school.
Okay, perfect. So essentially, Riverview taxpayers will pay 2/3, and Salem Lakes will pay for the other third. You get them for 2/3 of the year, they get them for the other third. And so to make this happen, Brian, what has to take place? What kind of vote? What kind of action?
Yeah, good question. It's actually a really cool opportunity for the community to be involved. I think it's one of those votes that, so essentially what has to happen is in the August meeting, the board will have an open discussion with community members about, their desire to not have a school resource officer, to levy those funds. At that meeting, the board will take a vote to add on to our preliminary budget the possible opportunity of adding the Fund 80. But the cool thing about that vote is it's not just going to be local representatives and board members who make that vote. In October, the community has the opportunity to approve or not approve the Fund 80 budget levy at that time. So it's our annual meeting, and so everyone that shows up that's a resident of Silver Lake Salem Joint 1 School District will get a vote if they want to levy Fund 80 or not.
And so that's kind of that statutory weird meeting where people elect a chair and out of the public and do that.
Yes, yeah, that's our weird meeting where it's a meeting for the people by the people. So whoever is elected chair runs the meeting, and then that's how we pass our budget and our tax levy each year.
Sure. So there was a lot of referendums on the ballot in Kenosha County. Kenosha, a big one, did not pass, was expected to. Yours passed. So what do you attribute that referendum passing to? I mean, was it education? What do you think you guys did to get it over the finish line?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think it's a tribute a lot to our teachers and our staff in the building who have built strong relationships with our community for decades and families upon families and generations. And, that goes a lot to the people that Riverview hires and the job they do for our kids and our families. But 3 years ago, the board hired Kim Taylor as our superintendent. And she really is a visionary who is looking to improve education for all kids. And part of that is we want to look at having, what is our guiding light, what's our vision as a school district, and through that we developed a strategic plan, and that was a process done with about 70 or more community members. Last summer we met about 5 times and had a lot of community involvement, and just kind of got the community's needs and desires of what they want to see out of the plan. Through that, we figured out that there's a lot of things like hands-on learning, school safety, our tenure of teachers, keeping our teachers and keep them happy and keeping them at Riverview Grade School. And so that's where we went to referendum for the safety piece and some of those things. Upgrades to our furniture, upgrades to our building. Obviously, we have, like most schools, we didn't have the means in our operating budget to replace air handlers and replace heating boilers and those things, and so this referendum helped out a lot with that.
So, Kim, how much was the referendum for? And can you kind of give your students and parents and taxpayers kind of a rough timeline of what they can see happen with the improvements and stuff like that?
Sure. So the referendum was for $7 million. It was a facilities referendum or capital referendum. So it was all allocated to the upgrade or maintenance of our facilities. A portion of it, there was a bucket for safety. And so this summer, we will be one of the only districts in the state of Wisconsin to have a crisis alert system in which all of our teachers and staff members will be wearing a badge that I have clicked enough times, 8 times, for instance, in a lockdown situation, puts the building in lockdown, which means our whole computer system gets taken over, the PA gets taken over, strobe lights go off, and the police are immediately notified with those clicks to come to the building. So that's being implemented as we speak and will be installed and ready to roll by the beginning of October. The other safety measure that was done this summer was a fencing. We put up a fence along our property line that blocks any students who would be running, for instance, as a barrier to the railroad tracks that exist adjacent to our playground. Adjacent to our playground and softball fields. We also worked this summer to get our boilers replaced. So last year, some of our constituents probably know we had a lot of heating issues, and that required our boilers to be replaced as well as our controls.
So a lot of the referendums in the county were sort of like wish list items, things that were, not needed, but just kind of they wanted. Not saying that they're bad, but yours seemed to be something you really, things that you really needed, for the bare minimum. What can you say about that? Sorry.
So our board was really intentional about thinking about the public and the taxpayers' money. Budgets are tight for all of us, not only in school districts, but in our households. Prices are rising and our paychecks aren't rising quick enough to accommodate that. So the board really looked at what are the things that we need to keep our kids safe and maintain our buildings, as well as prepare for the future. So our ask was for $7 million, which covered the big ticket items. And because we had good bond ratings and have been good fiscal agents, our bond rating came back very well and allowed us to get a lower interest rate than projected. So the cost to the taxpayer is actually lower than we thought it was going to be, which is always a win for everybody. And some other things that the board did was we developed a 10-year facilities plan, because one of the things we were hearing, and rightfully so, was that people were saying, well, hey, when we need to replace something, we have to save for it. So we opened Fund 46, which is the fund in the state that allows us to save for future capital needs, albeit that it can't probably save for everything, but it's at least showing the public that we are thinking about the future and not just doing it as it comes. So I think there was a lot of intentionality behind what are we going to ask for, and then in the past, being good fiscal agents allowed us to get a really good interest rate and pass that along to the taxpayers.
Awesome, thank you. And then Brian, if this SRO goes through, can you tell me what, other than the obvious of keeping the school safe, from threats, are there some other things that the deputy can bring to the table?
Yeah, it's a good question. As someone who works in one of our local schools with Kenosha County Sheriff's Deputy who serves as SROs, I think they are an extremely important member of the staff, right? So they're not just a police officer in a uniform with a gun. They're someone who interacts with kids, good and bad. They're out at recess. They're building relationships. They're building relationships with staff. They are showing up at extracurricular activities. They're out there. There's a lot of, before Silver Lake disbanded their police department probably 15, 20 years ago, there used to always be police officers on School Street during dismissal and arrival times for schools. I know that's been kind of a concern of constituents as well, and so we'll have that presence as well back. And really it's, just another adult, and my biggest concern, or my biggest area I think it's going to improve, is not just the safety piece, but also the ability for kids who may not have the opportunity to have positive relationships with police officers because of environmental or things that are outside their control, to start building a relationship with the police officer early at a young age, so that when they do need them, it's not immediately a negative thought. It's someone who can be there to help protect and serve.
Are there some specialized education that could happen as far as bringing other, this SRO bringing other agencies in to talk about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the biggest piece I also think to highlight here is that we're not paying for a school resource officer out of our common funds, and so some people might think, well, we'd rather have another teacher, or we'd rather have another bus route. This money can only be spent on community outreach. It can't be spent on common school funds, salaries, curriculum, things of that nature. And so this money is earmarked just for community outreach needs. And so to that point, I think what we're looking to have is maybe monthly meetings, where community sessions where the school resource officer can bring in other law enforcement professionals, like how do we help kids obtain a hunting license or a fishing license or bike safety or internet safety. Obviously in our community and a lot of communities around, vaping is a big concern amongst kids, and how can we provide education for families and students of that nature as well. And so I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities, and we as a board, if this does pass, are looking for that person to serve in that role.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like you guys have your work cut out for you. I want to thank you both for coming. Is there anything else you wanted to add that's coming through the pipe, or?
No, I think that's it. Again, I just want to commend. Obviously, this is just preliminary talks, and I'm one board member who is. I am in favor of it, and I'm extremely in favor for it. However, it's we're a 5-person board, and no decisions have been made yet. But I commend the Village of Salem Lakes, Trustee Hopkins, our village president, Rita Bukar, Kim Taylor, our superintendent, and then again the school board at Riverview of just being open to have the conversations and finding ways that we can. Enter into some of these intergovernmental agreements to help save money on taxpayers, but also provide a good service for our constituents. So.
Okay. So Superintendent Taylor, anything you wanted to add that's coming through the pipes, or did we really get through it all?
I think those are some of the biggest initiatives, but I also want to just speak to a lot of the transition that's happened in the last 2 years has been because of the community involvement in terms of education and what they want for their kids in terms of learning and being ready for the next part of their life. And so I really commend all of the community members, those that have kids in our school district, but also the many people who came out for the strategic planning meetings that are grandparents or just concerned community members.
Okay, great. Thank you both very much for stopping by. Okay, so if people want to learn more or get involved, what are some dates, times, stuff like that?
Yeah, so go to our website and you can see our calendar of board meetings. But our next board meeting will be Tuesday, August 26th at 6 p.m. It's on the agenda there for us to have a open community conversation about it. And so it's, we have it earmarked on the agenda where there will be back and forth between the superintendent, the sheriff's department. There'll be Village of Salem Lakes representatives there, our school board, so we can answer questions and have an open dialogue at the meeting. So August 26th will be the time to come. If you're in favor, if you have more questions, come out and speak your mind so that we can kind of make an informed decision. So, and then again, the annual meeting in October will be the meeting that September will be the meeting that the Fund 80 is either approved or not approved.
Awesome. Thank you very much.